lots of things you could do. Bury it in a tin can in the backyard, for instance. But idle money may in time depreciate. Or you could spend it on a couple of nights out a week with the wife. This seems like a lot of fun. But with this kind of life, you'd depreciate. So why not put your money to work?
Put my money to work?
That's right, Mr. Finchley. You can own a share of American business. There are over 1,200 companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Companies which employ more than 11 million people, produce half of all the goods made in America, and pay about half.
Welcome to Ask the Compound. Great show today. Great set of questions. Remember, if you have a question for us, askthecompoundshow@gmail.com. Today, this week, should you have different rules for your brokerage account than your retirement accounts? Duncan, I hope you do.
Yeah, I have some questions about this.
Okay, what is the best strategy for asset location, not just asset allocation? How do you track your retirement progress in middle age? What is better for paying for home renovations, RSUs or a HELOC? And does jewelry count as an asset class for investment? Good question. Our show today is sponsored by Rocket Money, my favorite personal finance app. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds, lowers, and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I think the end of the year is a great time to use a tool like Rocket Money to check your budgeting, your spending for the new year, right? What did I actually spend my money on? I think a lot of people don't actually know. I know we all like to think we know where our money is going. I think that's a problem for a lot of people. They don't know where their money is going because they don't track it. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. It's great. It's really easy. It's on your phone or you can pull up on your desktop. Stop wasting money on the things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/ATC. That's rocketmoney.com/ATC.
I like using Rocket Money to catch streamers when they start boosting the price. You know, it's like after a year goes by, they tack on $2, $3. Yeah,
it's great because it shows you go, oh, wait a minute. I haven't used this one in a while. I don't need it. Now, me, I use all the streamers, but it's nice to have them all in one place so you know what's what. All right. Good questions today. Fan favorite Bill Sweet is on the show. Let's go.
Okay. Up first, we have a question from Connor. Do you have any rules you set for yourselves in a brokerage account? Allocation percentages, selling prices, buying prices, when to take profit, or when to let your winners run, etc.? Or is this, as you say, a way to gamble outside of your 401k or IRA?
I like this question a lot because I know a lot of investors who treat different accounts differently. I am an advocate for the fund account if you need to scratch that itch. Not everyone has to. There's a lot of bogleheads out there who think, I don't need a fund account. I'm just set it and forget it. Index funds, I rebalance automatically.
How do they have
don't
fun?
Need it.
How do bogleheads have fun? I mean, nothing against them, no shade, but like to me, the market's fun. You know, if
Scrooge McDuck swims in his money, that's fun to him. Some people just want to count that. Some people don't need, and I think it's something that you can also graduate from because it started out for me as more of the gambling, speculative. Some people look at it as like I'm going to go way the other way, right? I have all these index funds over here, whatever ETFs. It's set it and forget it, target date funds, whatever. So I'm going to go nuts over here. I'm going to trade penny stocks. I'm going to trade crypto. I'm going to market time. I'm going to go to cash sometimes. All this stuff. Triple levered, whatever. Duncan, you know about those. And that's how it started out with me for my brokerage account. I was buying crypto. I was trading stocks. And I still use it as something of a fun account. But as I've graduated and the brokerage account has increased in value, some from investment gains, but mostly from saving, I guess, I don't really have as much. I don't need to scratch that itch as much. And I think part of the reason is because the money's getting bigger. And I decided like, I graduated from being a teenager or whatever to an adult. I need to be more adult with this. So slowly but surely, I've weaned off some of the stocks. I've sold some losses over the years. I've sold some winners over the years. And I've slowly but surely set it. The only set it and forget it I had in my brokerage account when I started was I just had automatic contributions going into the account. And then once the cash was there, then I would do something with it. And the problem with that as a strategy is it gets really tempting to just time the market. and cash becomes like, oh, what if I just build up the cash for a while? Then I'll really wait and I'll pounce on that fat pitch. And so I've slowly but surely turned down my rules for automatic contributions. And that means I sold some index funds and I sold some other investments in there, or I sold some stocks, I'm sorry, and I just started to do piling into ETFs automatically. So once a week on every Monday, I buy some ETFs. And it's pretty boring. It's a lot more boring than what I was doing before, but it's just, I've decided like slowly but surely graduate. Now that doesn't mean I won't still pick stocks there. I will. I still have some stock picks in there. I'll still buy some. I always follow Josh's bad picks. I never pick his good picks, you know. We can't all be right, but somehow I only pick Josh's bad stock picks, and I miss out on his good ones. So I've slowly but surely changed the trajectory of my brokerage account, and I think that will continue as it gets to be a bigger piece of my portfolio.
If you don't pick any individual stocks, you lose your CFA, right? I mean, you can't hold a CFA and not pick stocks.
That's why there's less CFAs now, because it's just easier to set it and forget it and buy the index funds and be done with it. And for me, it's just, I didn't want the decisions hanging over my head. That's the whole point of automating in the first place. I know. So for me, it's just, I've graduated from scratching that itch in this account. I don't need it as much anymore. So I'll do it occasionally, but it's just a smaller and smaller percentage. And so that's it for me. Some people still, so I don't have any sell. I think figuring out when to sell an individual stock is one of the hardest questions to answer as an investor. I don't think anyone can do that well, because there's so many stocks people have sold over the years, and you never go broke taking a profit, and the company just keeps going up. So I don't think there's any really good rules there. I think you just have to have some sort of boundaries on your actions if you want to actually be successful.
Yeah, as the non-finance professional, I'll just say my thing that I've learned the hard way over the years is I like trimming after being up big. I've seen too many stocks go down a lot after being up a lot in them. So now I just know that I need to sell some whenever something, doubles or goes up a lot, because it bothers me a lot when I'm up big and then end up selling at a big loss in a couple of years or something. So for instance,
for the house money, right?
Not to brag, but I've been a shareholder for a long time in Rocket Labs, and it's up big time right now. So I've been trimming some, not because I don't believe in the company or anything, but just because, you gotta take some gains.
See, diversification. You have that balances out your outlay, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You'd also be proud of me. I am buying more ETFs now. I'm diversifying. Good. And yeah. The problem that I have, though, I don't know if you have any recommendations on this, but when I see something going up, it's harder and harder for me to buy more of it. In a down market, when the market's going down, I'm happy to buy more every week. But when the market's going up, I just feel like, man, I just paid less 2 weeks ago for the same thing. Why would I pay more now? I have a lot of trouble with that.
And unfortunately, the trend and the momentum is usually your friend, and you should be doubling down on those. But I agree, it's much harder to do. It's easier to be like the value investor. But I think the other great part about these kind of fun portfolios is eventually you learn, like, oh man, if I would have just had this sitting in an ETF the whole time, look at how much better my results would have been. Now, some people get the results and go, oh, look, I'm doing better. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm a good active trader. Not many people, but some people. So I think it's a good litmus test to see how good your strategy actually is.
Yeah.
All right.
That would be painful to look at. Okay. Up next, we have a question from Dave. What are satisfactory allocations for stocks and growth investments, bonds and income investments, and cash at whatever age one is planning to retire? Should a retiree have between 15 to 20% of their investment in a brokerage account, 45 to 50% of their investments in Roth, and 25 to 30% in traditional? Seems like a question right up Bill Mr. Roth Sweet's alley.
All right, this is from Dave, one of our loyal viewers who's usually a regular in the live chat. I don't know if he's here today.
Yep.
But again, if you ask for someone by name, we bring them out here. So let's bring out Bill Sweet. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Bill's been ducking us for months.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah. End of year comes pretty hard. Ben, have you ever heard of this term walking pneumonia? Have you ever heard of this before?
My kids like walking tacos. I've never heard of walking pneumonia
Apparently
before.
I have it. Yeah, I've never heard this term in my life, so I think they just made it up. After COVID, they were like, we need a new disease, a new plague to put on the people.
Where does the walking come into it? Like your legs
Sounds
hurt?
like a zombie disease.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
it does.
It's like a hacking pneumonia, but yes, it does sound like The Walking Dead here. But great question from Dave, Ben. Big fan. And
so
Dave,
I've never looked at this before for my personal account, so I actually looked at this today.
Oh, wow.
And here's why I am. So this is like the old Jim Cramer, tell me if I'm diversified. So I got 17% in my brokerage account, 31% in Roth, and 52% in traditional. I think most of it is because The SEP IRA has the higher limit, so I put more in there. And also, I just built up the traditional assets earlier in the Roth 401k I didn't have until later. But that's not a bad mix, right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think I'm very diversified 50-50, brokerage versus Roth, because I don't have any traditional. Duncan, do you know where you are on the allocation spectrum?
No, not really.
Okay. All right.
So what do you think of Dave's? Dave says, what did he say? 20% or so in brokerage, 45 to 50 in Roth, 25 to 30 in traditional. Does that sound like a pretty good sweet spot for you in terms of balancing out optionality and tax efficiency?
Yeah, I love the idea, and Dave is thinking very smartly. It's not about like how do I build up, what should I do today? It's starting from where you want to be, right, and then backwards planning. But Ben, I think just to skip to the chase, the big reason why you're going to have variance in outcomes, you're not going to be able to correctly achieve whatever target allocation you set, is because you're limited on what you can contribute specifically to retirement accounts, and that a lot depends on your personal situation. So what I did do, I think a third is a perfectly reasonable way to balance this, right? In the absence of perfect information, diversify. And I don't think there's anything wrong with just splitting things in third. That goes back to literally the Bible. So we're talking 6,000 years. But I did prepare just a chart to talk through some of the advantages, disadvantages. John, can we chart this on? So just very simple for the viewers at home, there are advantages, disadvantages in the distribution phase that might come into each of these. And I think, Ben, the goal to me would be diversification. Is that you want to be able to kind of pick and choose and pull down assets to finance your life for spending regardless of when you retire. And there's no clear option. I mean, I think where I've kind of advocated for is I would rather be all the way on the right of this chart, right? Personally, I would rather be 100% Roth. But even I think that's the wrong answer because as you can see, there are disadvantages to being 100% Roth. If you're distributing all of your Roth assets in retirement, you're not filling up low tax brackets. You effectively are giving away empty seats that you could otherwise be not paying any income tax. So I think there are advantages and disadvantages to each. Ben, there's something that stood out to me in this chart. What stands out to you?
I got nothing. What?
The thing for me was like the advantages that you get through traditional, retirement account, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I was thinking about it. You get tax deferral, right? You get that with a Roth too. You get the ability to tax-free rebalance. That's a big one. You got a prior tax year tax deduction, right? You can control timing of income and you can fill up low tax brackets. I think all of those fit into traditional. It's why there's really no one size fit all. I think
so. They're kind of complements in a lot of ways. You can use the traditional to offset some of those Roth advantages and disadvantages, right?
Exactly, and that's exactly the point. And there are ways to slice that bucket. So I think ultimately it is going to differ for everybody, but I think a target of a third to me makes a lot of sense. And then let the path dictate. If you contribute more to a SEP IRA, you're probably going to end up with a higher traditional balance than you would have elsewhere.
And I think the other part of Dave's question was because we've been talking a lot about early retirement, people trying to figure out that mix.
Yeah.
And what is the best mix? And his point is like, shouldn't there just be a sweet spot for everyone? And obviously it differs because for the early retiree, you can't touch some of those other traditional assets, right? If you don't want to pay a penalty. But yeah, that's why, to your point, keep it simple. That's like the Harry Markowitz, right? The efficient frontier guy said, I looked at all this efficient frontier stuff and I just did 50-50 portfolio because it was easy.
Or Warren Buffett's strategy, right? It's 90% in ETF, 10% Treasury bill, right? So if the greatest minds in finance have kind of come to simple beats complex, I don't think we can beat that, Ben.
Yes, but I like your idea that like if you had all your money in Roth assets, even that's not the ideal.
Yeah, it's not, and I'm desperately trying to achieve that, and I'm failing. So,
all right, next question.
Seth in the chat said if Duncan starts investing responsibly, I'm out. So don't worry. I bought 2 penny stocks today, so we're
gotta scratch that itch. Yeah.
Okay. Up next, we have a question from SD. I'm 38, getting close to middle age, and moved to the U.S. from India in 2008 for my master's degree. I started working full-time in 2011, but delayed contributing to my 401k until 2014, as I wasn't sure I'd stay here permanently. Life changed when I met my wife, and now we have beautiful twin daughters. My 401k is around $380,000 with allocations to ETFs and stocks like QQQ, SMH, Amazon, Google, and LRCX, not familiar with that one, along with large cap S&P 500 index funds. I also have around $575,000 in taxable brokerage accounts. Am I taking too much risk? How does my progress compare to others in my age group?
Lamb Research, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah. I know that.
So first of all, well done since you got a little bit of a late jump on that 401k. You're almost 40, but you're still doing pretty good. Also, congrats on the twins. I feel like there's a bond with other parents who have twins. I don't want to have like stolen valor here, Bill, but I feel like when I talk to parents who have twins, it's kind of like we went through the same battle together. we kind of know what each other's talking about. Here's the deal. SD has almost $1 million between retirement and brokerage accounts, and he's 38. Like, however you want to talk about it here, where you live or how you're living, end of story, you're doing great. Like, you're basically a millionaire before age 40. John, throw the chart on here. This is from the Federal Reserve. They look at the median, average, and then different buckets for how people are on the ages of 35 to 39. So this is where SD is at here. Average is about 500,000, but that's obviously skewed by the higher end. Top decile is 864,000. Median is 138,000. This is net worth. So he only gave us his retirement and brokerage accounts. So I don't know if he has a house, if he has any debt, but just assets alone, we're talking easily in the top 10% for your age group. So you are doing just fine. However, I think my usual advice here, John, you can do chart off. I don't like comparing myself, or I don't like anyone comparing themselves to others when it comes to finances like this. Because a lot of it, like your peers, your peer age group, because a lot of it is, like money is kind of like your risk profile, right? It's circumstantial, where you live, what kind of lifestyle you lead, debt, spending, I don't know, family circumstances. I don't think it ever makes sense because I think we all compare ourselves on a relative basis, and I don't think it's very helpful.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all portfolio. It really does depend. What I just loved, just two things about SD. One, I love, just having folks come to the U.S. and contribute. Like, that's really awesome, regardless of where you come from. To come to the U.S. and choose to be here is a privilege to be a part of the country. But then secondly, just that ultimately, if you're willing to take on that level of risk and you can tolerate the drawdowns, well on you. SD's done great, Ben, over the last 10 to 12 years invested in this portfolio. I think there is no one size fits all. And rather than try to pick the perfect portfolio, try to pick the portfolio to you, because you're going to be able to stick with that for the long run.
One of the things I would say when it comes to the risk, he said, am I taking too much risk? And obviously we don't know. But I think dollar losses matter a lot more than percentage losses the more you get. So now you have almost $1 million. I think it's 955,000 here. Like, how much are you willing to see evaporate from a dollar perspective, right? What's your line in the sand? If your portfolio went to $600,000 in a month, like that's basically what would have happened in the COVID plunge. Like, would you be okay with that if you had all your money in stocks and all these risky stocks? And he's in more tech-heavy stocks too, so it could be more like a 40, 50% plunge,
right? Potentially.
Like, could you see that 955 cut in half, and now you're at whatever 400 something? How would you feel? Would you still stick with it? And so I think that's something to think about. Like, now that you have more money, do you need to diversify? You concentrate to get rich and you diversify to stay rich. That's a question I would ask. And the other thing is, do you have a portfolio of stocks and funds, or do you have a plan? There's a huge difference. That's the old Nick Murray. There's a difference between a portfolio and a plan. Now that you have more money, you probably need to think more about the plan than just the portfolio.
Right. And the big behavioral hack for me, Ben, we talked about this a lot, but if you're not going to be touching a retirement account until age 60, I don't frankly care what's in the account right now, right? It's a number, it's out there in a spreadsheet, but ultimately translating that into future spending is really what matters. And in a lot of ways, if you have another 20 years to invest, you probably do want a big drawdown happening now, right? So you look at that as a good thing, because that's what's going to lead to your compound gains in the future.
Keep saving, but regardless, he's doing very well for himself.
That's great. Congrats.
I have a question. I'm a little surprised by those net worth statistics for my age group.
Throw it back up, John.
That's after net worth is after removing like student loan debt, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So assets minus liabilities. You think it's higher or lower than you would have thought?
Like way higher.
Wow.
The average.
So, the median's 140,000, 138,000. I think you're looking at the higher end, Duncan. So
I'm looking at the average as of 500.
Well, again, but the average, the median number is more important than the average. The average is being skewed. I think the top 1% was like $4 million, which thanks, Mom and Dad. The median is the one you want to look at. The median makes more sense. The average is being pulled way, way higher.
Hey, I built that shitcoin all by myself, Ben.
So the top 10%, a lot of that average comes from the top 10% and the top 1%. So actually, I built this chart, and the top 1% was on there. I think it was like $4.1 million, and it totally skewed, and it made it look weird. And I thought, take that off of there. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So the median, 140,000, that to me is more representative than the average.
Okay. I was about to say,
That's how you can lie with statistics, though, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you got to look at it from both ways. All right, we got one more.
Okay. Up next, we have a question from Adam. I was thinking about selling restricted stock units to pay for a kitchen upgrade. Then it hit me: is the benefit of a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, for those new here, Is the benefit of a HELOC...
Look at Duncan showing off with all his
I
acronyms
got all
here.
these acronyms today. Is the benefit of a HELOC that the interest rate for a line of credit like this is lower than the tax burden of RSUs taxed twice, once on transfer and once on capital gains sale, 37% plus 20%? Naively, I thought that if I pay in cash, it's the cheapest option of all, but now I'm considering using a HELOC because even though rates aren't great right now, it's still cheaper than the tax I would pay to sell stock. How should I be thinking about this?
I really like this question because it's almost like a CEO thinking through a capital allocation decision, right?
Wow.
So, Bill, you can talk about this from the tax side of things. The simple Occam's razor one for me here is the HELOC makes more sense to me because that's literally the reason these things exist. You use the home equity line of credit to renovate your home, and then you can write the interest off. So, what say you on this decision?
Yeah, and I like that, Ben. I like your idea of the CEO, the CFO, which I play a role on my day job, but balancing that debt and equity, right? Looking at that balance sheet. Ultimately, if you take on a liability, right, you are reducing your net worth, Duncan, just depending on how you play it. But I did want to play the tax angle on the RSUs because I think these are really two different questions that we're taking a look at. So, John, can you please chart on my quick RSU explainer sheet? So
wait a second, Bill.
Yeah.
Where did you get the
The tax font?
I told young Sam Sweet he wouldn't be able to watch any Power Rangers until he drew me a rad symbol, right? When I pulled up the ACDC.
very scary.
Yeah. So, but Ben,
one thing. Sorry, but just to interrupt before you dive into this. Remind me, RSUs are purchased by the employee or just granted?
Okay, great. So RSUs, restricted stock units, very typically these are granted as part of a compensation package. Yeah,
okay.
And Duncan, you're setting me up here because I'm about to wind up on my RSU explainer. But there are really three time periods that we need to pay attention to RSUs, John. And all the way on the left on an RSU grant, when the company says, hey, we're going to grant you 1,000 restricted stock units, Ben, for $100 each, effectively that's a grant of $100,000, right? Which is a wealthy sum of money for any man or woman in the United States. However, that doesn't do anything, right? I mean, there's no taxable event there because you can't spend the money. You can't do anything with a granted RSU. Fast forward a year, 2 years, maybe your company needs to hit some sort of profitability metric. That's when the RSU vests, that's when the tax hits. So Ben, you and I are relatively well off in the world. You and I make a healthy salary. Ben, would you like to receive... Not to brag. Ben, would you like to receive your salary next year in the form of company stock?
Is this a trick question? Am I a
just
company
yes or
man?
no?
No, I'd probably rather have the money.
Right, because you can spend the money. But what the RSU is, they are just paying you your compensation, your cash, but it's coming in the form of company stock. So John, can we pull up the chart real quick? And what happens when your RSU vests is you then have to pay the tax as if that was cash. So $100,000 is going to cost you $7,000 of FICA. It's going to cost you $35,000 of federal income tax at a medium high tax bracket and $7,000 of state income tax. So that $100,000 grant of stock cost you over $45,000 to $50,000 of taxes, right? As if it was cash. And that's the way to think about RSUs. RSUs are paying you in company stock, but ultimately it's getting taxed as if it's cash. Now, the question here is, well, I'm getting taxed twice. And technically the answer is yes. However, once that vesting event happens and you have the stock in your bank account, you're free to sell it. You can sell it that instant and basically get that $100,000 of cash that you would have otherwise gotten if it was paid to you in cash. However, if you then sit and wait and you get a capital appreciation on the stock from the date of vest, then you have a gain and then you're paying capital gains back to the RSU. So 3 dates to pay attention to, but my argument here, Ben, is RSUs are not getting taxed twice. Really, you're just getting paid in company stock. And at the moment of vesting, you probably should be transferring that to a cash account instead of holding on to the stock, if that fits your financial.
So your point is you're paying the taxes anyway. You're already paying them either way.
And you have no choice over the timing, right? What you do have choice over is once you hold that stock, the question I would ask, would I go out and buy $100,000 of this company's stock if I just wanted to invest in it?
So the opportunity cost is a bigger key here than the tax hit. It's like, would you rather sell this stock to pay for the whole home renovation or take on the debt? Yeah, would you rather let this ride and potentially miss out on further gains So that makes more sense, right? 'Cause
So
the
once
taxes
the
are gonna happen either way.
RSUs vest, you then just have stock. You no
Correct.
longer have RSUs.
Correct. You
They
have a
just
company.
convert
Yep.
to stock.
Yep.
Okay.
It might still be in an RSU account, but yeah, effectively you have that stock in a brokerage account. And if you sell it that instant, if you sell it the day that it vests, Duncan, there's no further
So
taxable gain.
if you're an NVIDIA employee and you say, I'm sitting on these amazing gains, my stock is up 10x in the last 5 years or whatever it is, maybe I should take some money off the table.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes sense. Otherwise, I still think the whole point of the HELOC is that you use it for home renovations. So if you're sitting on a ton of house money, sure, put it back into your other house.
Yeah, it's also a really neat. It's
yeah.
a really neat timing tool, Ben, because then you can initiate your repairs, right? You can get stuff moving here in the first week of December, and then just liquidate the stock in January, February, right? HELOCs are very, very flexible.
Yes.
But outside of tax, the other big problem that RSUs tend to accumulate, right? If you do nothing and you just let the stock vest, you pay your tax, you're mad at your CPA because you owe $40,000 every year in tax and you don't know why. The reason is the stock that's building up in your brokerage account. Ben, you know what happens over time to a lot of clients that get company stock, right? They have a concentration problem.
Yes.
So to me, it's holistic in a plan. You need to be deciding when you want to sell this stuff, not if, because what you don't want to do is be that stereotypical NVIDIA employee. God bless them. If 90% of your net worth is tied to a company that you're also working for, if something happens to your job or that company, you're up poops creek, right? And we don't.
Everyone likes talking about NVIDIA a lot because it's a great story, but I'm sure this happens a lot where companies go under or the stock is cut in half.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers, Enron. You could look at if you'd probably much rather have the kitchen than the worth of stock. The other thing is you could split the difference here. So we did some home renovations this past year, and I paid for half of it in cash out of savings, and I paid for half of it with the HELOC, and then I usually pay the HELOC over, 12 to 18 months I pay it off. And even though rates are high right now, over 12 to 18 months, that's not onerous in terms of I'm paying 7 or 8% of my HELOC. It's not going to kill me over that time period. If I let it ride for 20 years, then it's going to matter. So I think you could also split a difference. Say, I'm going to sell a little bit of stock, and I'm also going to use a little bit of the HELOC and do that way.
I've even got a third option. Let's say, hypothetically, your RSU shares, your next tranche vests, right, on December 1st, January 1st. Maybe you knock out the HELOC now, but then just convert that immediately to cash, right? There's no additional tax if you just get the stock and sell it.
True. To your point, that's one of the great selling points to me, the HELOC, is that it allows you flexibility. So I can write a check on mine anytime I want without having to move cash around to other accounts or sell something, and then you can be flexible. And then if you want to pay that HELOC down, okay, now I'm going to sell. Now I'm going to move it. You don't have to do it right away. It gives you flexibility.
Amen.
You could also sell some calls against that stock, get some income going, right?
Yeah. Then you're off the reservation there. Yeah.
All right. Last question.
Last but not least, we have a question from Dylan. My wife loves this question cracks me up. My wife loves wearing jewelry, and I like giving it to her as a gift for her birthday and Christmas. We like it because she can wear it every day, and it doesn't take up extra space in our cluttered house. I spend anywhere from $200 to $1,000 on a piece of jewelry, with the amount going up almost every year as our income continues to grow. Between everything I've gotten her, the jewelry she has bought herself, a wedding ring, and stuff we've inherited from family, we might have over $25,000 in jewelry. I don't own any gold in any of my portfolios, but I like the idea of owning the physical asset in lieu of it being in a brokerage. We never plan on selling any of it, but it's always there if we need it, and it can act as diversification to our stocks and real estate. Am I crazy for thinking this? Does this mean I'm invested in gold or silver? Do you consider this exposure to the gold market? Should I be buying my wife Bitcoin instead?
I have 2 words for Dylan. Cubic zirconia. I often think about my wife's engagement ring, and could we even get close to what we bought it for back then, 20 years ago or whatever? I wonder, how much was the markup? There's no way you could get what you paid for it, right?
No.
And where would you even sell it?
Is it cubic zirconia?
Probably. No, it's not. It's they told me to put my face in the little microscope and look at it, and I'm like, oh sure, yeah, looks great. Look, I know anything. Here, look at it in the microscope. You can see there's no cuts or dings on it. I don't know. Where would you even sell it? A pawn shop?
I don't know. And
just imagine if you had given her Bitcoin way back then.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Ethan Sweet, brother of me, is a diamond setter in the Diamond District in New York City. We should have him on the show and ask him that question. But you guys are aware of synthetic diamonds, right? I mean, that's changed the game in the last 10 years, certainly.
Wasn't that what cubic zirconia is essentially? It's a
No,
fake?
no, they literally make diamonds. You're not aware of this? Yeah. Instead of digging them up from the ground, they just make them in a lab now, and they are less
That's
expensive.
what I'm saying.
From what
Yeah,
I
no, but
understand.
here's the thing. I think it's a nice gesture. If you're never planning on selling it, I'm really not sure it should count as part of your portfolio. It sounds almost more like a hobby than an asset class. And again, it's like a tangible thing. If you're really taking it seriously, like, do you have a safe to keep this safe in your home? Do you have insurance on this in case it gets lost or stolen? So those are the if you're going to thinking of it seriously as an asset class, those are the kind of questions that I would be asking.
Yeah. I send all of your viewer email to askthecompound@gmail.com on this one. But what is the point? Like, when have anyone in the last 40 years gone to the basement, pulled out a gold bar and been like, here it is. Like, here's what I need for this moment. I mean, the only justification I can think of having a large brick of metal in my basement in a safe is if somebody breaks in and I want to smash them with it, right? That's the only thing. And I have scissor blocks that I can use for that purpose. I have
Your basement is just full of guns and ammo and canned food, right?
Yeah, I don't understand. I'm not trying to knock anybody else's investment portfolio, because what works for you works for you. But what is this obsession with shiny metal? I don't understand. It glitters.
I mean, it looks cool.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
I like
my favorite
coins.
quote on this
I collect
from
coins, so I have some cool gold and silver coins. I
Can you
understand
log
that
into your
appeal.
gold bars? Like, I don't understand this. Somebody explain this to me.
So the best one I've heard on this is William Bernstein said, a bar of gold in the time of Jesus when he walked the earth could buy a fine men's suit, and it still does so today. And so if in that instance, it's like an inflation hedge, apparently. It keeps up with inflation. And for whatever reason, people back then decided gold is shiny and pretty, and we're going to make it worth something. And for thousands of years now, it has done that. I agree. But I think if your wife gets the psychic income from wearing the jewelry and she enjoys it and you enjoy buying it for her, keep doing it as a gift to her. I'm not sure that it would count as an asset in your portfolio. But it would be kind of fun. Take the one she never wears anymore. Yeah. Bring it to a pawn shop and see what they'll give you for it. I'd be curious to hear what kind of markdown
I would make sure she's on the same page
in the secondary market. Well,
you're not selling her jewelry out from under her.
You don't trade it for sure. I'm just looking for a market value of this stuff, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You got to mark that portfolio if this is going to be part of your portfolio.
That was my question is, say you have a block of gold and you want to cash it in because you have a big expense coming up. I don't even know where you would take it.
Oh, you've never seen those stores that say we buy gold?
Well, yeah, but none of them that I would walk into with a brick of gold.
Well, yeah, again, you'd pay a hefty fee, I'm sure, on the exchange. But,
there's a blockchain somewhere that can solve this problem.
I mean, wouldn't a block of gold be like $3,000 or $4,000?
That's why you buy GLD, so they store it for you
like
for
an
a
ounce.
small
Isn't
fee.
that what it is? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not
Good
walking
question.
around.
I don't know
This was a fun question.
But what price would you put on your marital happiness?
Well, they mentioned something that I think is kind of interesting. Do you think most people adjust their gift giving with their income? So like every year, they get a 10% raise.
Totally.
They increase the birthday and Christmas gifts by 10%.
Yeah, 100%.
Is that how that works for most people?
Yeah, I would think so.
100%. Yeah, on an Excel spreadsheet.
But you're aware of it. You think you're like saying, "Oh, this year I made this much more money. I should spend this much more."
I think it's more of a vibes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Vibes.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Keep
Okay.
buy him that other thing.
It depends on how much you effed around during the year, because that's when you find out.
Bill, your oldest Sam is how old now?
He's 7. He's 7, and we're playing basketball tonight for the first time this year. I'm jazzed.
Okay, so our 7-year-olds are fine. My son is oblivious because boys are oblivious to everything. My daughter, are you sure Santa's real? She's already asking, and she, as my youngest, is kind of sad that I feel like Santa's done. He's done.
Wow, that happened soon
already.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with the kids at dinner about a week ago, and my son Sam was asking questions. He just said, what's up with this? What's up with that? And he actually said this to me. I'm not making this up. He said, Dad, what is more likely, that all of the parents are just lying about Santa and they're just all pretending, or do you think there's actually a man who flies from the North Pole and delivers the presents? And I said, well, what do you think? And he was like, that's where the presents are coming from, Dad. Come on. And I knew he was still my son. Yeah, for a little while.
I tell my daughter if she says all the kids at school are saying he's not real anymore. I said, well, listen, if you believe in Santa and you have the Christmas spirit, then in your mind he's real.
He believes in you. Yeah, Will Ferrell, Elf. Yeah,
I gotta say that's got to be the worst kids. No offense to anyone out there, but the
yes,
kids going around doing that at school.
Yes,
like,
they
I'm
ruin
sorry,
it.
you have a bad kid if they're doing that. They're not a good kid.
I agree. Sorry. Right. Snitches end up in ditches. That's what I tell my kids. All right. Videos for Ask the Compound are now up on Spotify. We also got the Spotify Wrapped stuff. Duncan, anything to share?
Yeah, John, throw up look at these gains.
Wow.
You know?
A bull market in Ask the Compound.
That's right.
I mean, not that impressive compared to a lot of the stocks that are up more than this year, I guess. But yeah, I think that's pretty good.
We're outperforming Duncan's portfolio, though.
I'm proud to be a part of the show, and I'm proud of both of you. Fine gentlemen, and John at home, too.
Thank you to everyone in the live chat. Thank you for everyone watching on Twitter, on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Leave us a question. askthecompoundshow@gmail.com. And we still have 2 more shows this year, I think.
Something
See you
like
next
that.
week.
Yep. See ya.